Hello and welcome to Food, Nutrition, and Wellness. Today we're talking food environments in Ohio and how they can impact us. Stay tuned, we'll be right back. Hello everyone, welcome to Food, Nutrition, and Wellness. Duane Rigsby, Dan Remley here. Dan, we're talking food environments. Now, give me a little bit of definition of what a food environment is.
Well, very simply, it's the communities where we live in, where we get our food, what's in our homes.
Okay, so we're just talking like around us, the different stores or maybe markets, local farmers market kind of thing?
Right.
Okay,
right.
Gotcha.
So it can be our homes, our communities, where we access food.
Okay, gotcha.
And how it influences our choices that we make too.
Oh, okay, good. So I know we have lots of slides and lots of topics to talk about this, so I don't know if you want to go ahead and get right into some slides.
Okay. So I want to talk a little bit about what a food environment is. We kind of talked a little bit about that. So talk about what that is, what a food environment is, and then how it can influence our ability to eat healthy and our ability for our families to eat healthy. So food environments can influence the choices that we make every day in terms of healthy foods. So we'll talk about that, and then we'll talk about some of our extension programs that that I work with to help communities understand how their environments influence the health and well-being of the community and families. So we'll talk a little bit about a program called Heal Maps and how Heal Maps can help understand how communities can address obesogenic environments and the ability of people to access healthy food.
Okay.
So as you know, Duane, in academia, we like lots of diagrams and models.
Yep.
And so this is what we call the social ecological theory. Very simply, this basically says that our friends, our communities, organizations, whether they be schools or work sites, can influence whether or not we eat healthy. So, for example, here at South Centers, as you know, there's lots of we have lots of parties and there's lots of donuts out there and lots of high-calorie foods that we're often surrounded with. And so, I know you have a lot of willpower, but I don't when it comes to donuts.
Oh, we all break down. That's for sure.
So when I walk by donuts, I might eat a donut. So so that's an example of how a food environment here at South Centers can influence whether or not I eat a donut. So
okay, gotcha.
The environments, our homes, our communities, our organizations that we belong to, whether they be work sites or schools, can influence our abilities to eat healthy.
Gotcha.
On the flip side of this, we also have the ability to influence those communities and organizations. And so, for example, here at Extension, we're really trying to promote healthy meals at meetings. And so I might take the initiative to get South Centers to offer healthier options.
Yeah.
For example, if we have a meeting, not just offer the donuts, but offer some apples in addition to the donuts so that those healthy choices are available.
Certainly makes sense.
So we have the ability to influence what's available to us. Does it make sense?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, sure does. Now, how does, obviously that whole willpower thing, a donut or an apple, that donut's going to taste better, but obviously it's worse for us.
Yeah,
so how is there something that we can do, should we put up a little sign on it that says, really, this is, put a little sign behind the donut that says this is really like 10,000 calories versus this apple that's like 5. So you might think about it, give something away that helps me to make a decision.
Right. So
should we do things like that?
I'm sure you've noticed that a lot of fast food restaurants actually offer the calorie counts.
Yeah, I noticed that now on the signs, and that really
has that made a difference in terms of your choices?
I look at that number now and I go, maybe I'll try the chicken.
Okay.
You know, so I do, actually.
So
for me, anyway, I've tried to go, yeah, that looks like a lot of numbers.
Right. So it kind of comes down to what we know and what we don't know about food, and also our internal motivations to make healthy choices. And so we have to have the ability to understand that, hey, I might be at risk for diabetes, or I have diabetes, I might be at risk for complications, and be internally motivated to make those healthier choices.
Okay.
But then we also have to have the knowledge and skills to understand, you know, the various foods and the calorie counts and that type of thing, carbohydrates and, you know, whatnot. So we have to be motivated, but we also have the ability to make those healthy choices and be able to read food labels and that type of thing.
Makes sense.
Or understand that fried chicken, for example, has more calories than the grilled.
Yeah.
And so we have to have the ability to make those healthy choices if we go to a fast food restaurant. So this is about, you know, understanding that, yeah, our environments can influence our choices, but we also have the ability to make those healthy choices and have the self-confidence and those skills and knowledge to do that as well.
Makes sense.
So we have a YouTube video that shows that zip codes may be more predictive of health than genetic codes. So let's look at that.
A zip code is 5 numbers. It's meant to get mailed to people, not say how long they'll live. But all too often, that's exactly what a zip code does. Millions of Americans actually live sicker and shorter lives than others just a few miles away. Some of us are likely to live 25 years less, or be 3 times more likely to have a heart attack, all because of where we live. A zip code is 5 numbers that can predict whether we are likely to suffer a preventable illness and influence how safe we feel in our neighborhood. A zip code is 5 numbers that says a lot about the kind of schools kids go to, whether we get daily exercise, our access to healthy food, and quality health care. America's future depends on the health of all Americans, which is why the Robert Wood Johnson Foundation cares about where we live, learn, work, and play, because that is where health happens. And we proudly support changes happening all across the country to break down the barriers to good health. A zip code is 5 numbers that should indicate where we live, not how long we live. Find out more about health in your community.
So that was pretty interesting, Dan. You know how a lot of those cities, they were implementing one certain thing at least.
Sure.
Which makes sense. If you can implement one thing and make it good, then maybe you can go on and do something else. So,
sure.
Yeah.
And so the point of the video is to show that, you know, yes, our genetics, what our traits that we inherit from our parents and our grandparents are very predictive of like whether we, you know, develop diabetes early in life or heart disease. But what's even more important is where we live.
Yeah.
And you know, you can look at a city, and there might be 2 communities side by side divided by a highway or a road. On one side, one community has higher employment rates, lower rates of poverty, much better health outcomes, such as diabetes rates of heart disease, that type of thing, cancer rates, than the other side of the road. So it's that stark a divide.
Yeah.
And so really our environments really can make a difference in our health and well-being. So we're going to explore that a little bit more. Okay.
All right.
So when we talk about food environments, we have to remember that it's not just like access to a grocery store. It really gets into just kind of our overall expectations for portions, for food portions, for example. I've showed this slide before on my segment, but this shows how portion sizes have increased over the years. And so back in 1950, when you get a popcorn and a pop, you know, that
was the size on the left.
The serving size, and compared to today's in the middle there, That's a serving of popcorn and pop.
Yeah.
And then if the trends continue, this is what we're going to be looking at in 2050 on the right there. So.
Wow, 2050. That's not that far away.
So, and the research shows that even using larger cups and larger bowls, I just did a presentation with 6th graders and had them pour out some juice into like a standard cup that we see around the house.
Yeah.
And most of these portions were about 6.5 or 2.5 servings of juice, which is about 250 to 300 calories.
Right.
And so the kids didn't really realize that, but the research says if you use larger bowls and larger glasses, you're going to consume more food. And so when we talk about food environments, we also have to remember that our expectations for portion sizes have increased over the years. The size of the plates that we use, the size of the bowls and cups and things like that really can influence what we eat and how much we eat.
I agree.
And then the research supports that idea. So you go to a restaurant, you get these huge trays of food.
Oh, yeah.
And so the research also shows that you're going to eat more food.
Yeah.
If you get a big tray of food like that. So we have to remember that. That's part of our food environment that we have to navigate to eat healthier.
Okay.
So does this look like the grocery store that you shop at, Duane?
Well, a little bit, but not that. It isn't quite that colorful, I should say.
So,
and it's not. Yeah,
here in Southern Ohio, we don't have too many grocery stores that look like this.
But it's not like that.
You can imagine that if you have a grocery store like this, it'd probably be a little bit easier to eat a little healthier. And I mean, look at the produce, how wonderful it looks.
Yeah.
I think this was taken out of a store in Columbus, but down here in Southern Ohio, we may be in rural communities where we don't have this much selection, and the produce items might not.
We may only have 3 or 4 of those things.
Might be kind of bruised and that type of thing. So, some people shop at convenience stores. And they might not have access to a larger grocery store, and so so our grocery stores that we shop at can influence our abilities, our choices, and that type of thing. Now you can eat healthy if you choose canned or frozen fruits and vegetables too, but fresh is nice. It tastes better and that type of thing. And
now, is that whole with the whole part of being fresh and frozen? Is there I mean, here in Southern Ohio, again, I think eating healthy is we should do, but it's also very expensive. Is frozen a little cheaper way to go?
Frozen and canned can be less expensive, and plus you have the advantage of you can store them longer. The problem with canned is the sodium, and also canned fruits with sodium with vegetables, and then canned fruits can be packed in syrup, which can add to your calories and carbohydrates and things like that. So you want to make when you're choosing the canned, you want to look for lower sodium, packed in light syrup, and then the same with frozen. Sometimes frozen they can also pack them in syrup as well.
Oh, really? Okay.
Or even with vegetables, they might have a sauce in them or something like that that increases the.
I didn't really realize that in frozen
content. So just kind of read the labels when it comes to that type of thing. But certainly, canned and frozen are healthy options in terms of fruits and vegetables. And for some people, that's the only options they have as well. They don't have the access to the fresher. Now we talk about nutrition. I also like to talk about physical activity in our community's abilities to support physical activity. So this is kind of a funny slide here.
I like the escalator.
I also showed this to the 6th graders to see if they understood what it was trying to say. But what this slide says is that physical activity really has been engineered out of our lives in many of our communities. People live in communities where there aren't sidewalks or sidewalks are falling apart. And so they might have to go to the gym because they can't walk places. And actually, a lot of the research we're going to talk about this next week or next month. A lot of the research supports the idea that you really want to avoid those long periods of sitting. Because that's sitting is the new smoking. And so I'm sort of like an active couch potato. So I sit all day and then I go to the gym or I play tennis or But so I'm trying to break up my sitting. But it's our communities are really designed around the automobile. It's hard to be physically active. And some people live on roads where their cars go really fast. And especially in these rural areas, they can't go for a walk. It's
absolutely. You're right. It's not safe. A lot of times the roads aren't wide enough. So yeah, it's not. We're not in a community that supports, like you said, activity outside, walking and things like
Right,
that. Now hiking and something that might be a little different out.
Yep. But you still have to have a card to get to some of the parks.
Yeah,
so
that's true.
Yep.
True.
And then if you have a disability,
that makes it worse.
It can be harder. Yeah. So just wanted to point that out. Now, Duane, when I grew up in South, I don't like to admit this too often, but I did grow up in Michigan, being Ohio State faculty here. But so when I used to drive to my high school, I wouldn't drive by any fast food outlets. And today, when I drive my kids to school, we must pass like 3 or 4 fast food places. Yeah. And as we talked about earlier, you can eat healthy at McDonald's or Burger King, but you just have to know how to do it. You have to have the willpower.
Yeah. Yeah.
So yes, we live in communities that it's very easy. We have easy access to fast food, but it's also easy to make the unhealthier choices.
Absolutely.
So it's really easy to make that get that Big Mac and that large fry, and not get the smaller $1 hamburger with the apples.
Yeah, right.
For example.
I agree. It is very hard, and I'm lucky. My travel to back and forth to work doesn't include any fast food restaurants. I barely goes past a gas station. Yeah,
that's uncommon. So these fast food places, they know how to market their product to you, and so the reds and oranges and those colors actually induce hunger. I don't know if you knew that. So and that's why a lot of them have yellows and oranges colors. Yeah. Yep, because they've done the research and they know that those colors.
I never thought about colors like that, but
they actually promote hunger. So let's talk about food deserts, and the idea of a food desert has actually been criticized quite a bit by academics and researchers. There was a big push to try to address food deserts. A food desert is a place where people don't have as much access to healthy food.
So like we do here in Southern Ohio.
Yeah, and it's defined in the rural areas. It's defined as a place where a large number of people live more than a 10-mile drive to like a large grocery store. In an urban, it's 1 mile. So the idea is that an urban area, people do they might not have as much access to a car. People in rural areas might be more likely to have cars because they need to get places. So here is some research from Jill Clark from the John Glenn School of Policy, and this shows now this is just looking at rural areas in Ohio. But if you live in a blue area on the map here, you live within a 10-mile drive to a grocery store.
Within a 10-mile area.
Yep. Okay. So we're in Ross County. There's quite a bit of people in Southern Ohio. They live in those white areas, so they live outside that 10-minute drive to a grocery store. So if you don't have a car, you're really kind of behind the 8 ball when it comes to getting to a grocery store. So you might be more reliant on neighbors, but that influences like the types of foods that you buy. So I started my extension career in rural Missouri, and we would shop at Walmart, which is like 40 miles away. So we would only get there, maybe once a month or something like that. So we really had to think about what we would buy and what we didn't buy. So we bought a lot of canned and frozen fruits and vegetables, a lot of shelf-stable types of things, not as much fresh produce because it wouldn't last as long. So it does make a difference. This map is an interesting map too, and this is a little bit older of a study. This is 2012, and you can see that there are lots of communities here where there isn't a lot of access to supermarkets. In fact, if you don't live in a green area, you live more than a 10-minute drive to a supermarket. Less than a 10-minute drive to a supermarket. If you live in a community that is in the kind of beige area, you live more than a 10-minute drive to a supermarket, but less than a 10-minute drive to a fast food establishment. Okay. So that goes to show you that some people live in communities where it's really easy to get to fast food, but not easy to get to a grocery store, especially in our rural areas. Now, where Vinton County is in south central Ohio. For a long time, they did not have a grocery store.
That's true. Yeah.
They have one now, but for a long time, people had Dollar General, and that was it. So they had to come to Chillicothe or down to Portsmouth to get their food, but it wasn't easy for people to access food.
That's true.
As you know, Dollar General, there is canned and there's some frozen, but it's not fresh.
They typically never have any fresh of any sort. True.
I think this is an interesting map too. This looks at store competition, and so I do remember in Missouri, Memphis, Missouri, Northeast Missouri, we had an IGA, but that was the only place we could get food. That's why we went to Walmart. But the prices for produce, for example, they were extremely high.
Yeah.
And you'll see a lot of corner stores too will have really high prices for healthy foods. And so if there isn't a lot of competition in terms of places where you can shop, typically the prices are high. So competition is a good thing. Is a good thing when it comes to food prices generally. A lot of people that live in rural areas they may live more than 10 miles from a grocery store, but don't have a car too. So this is kind of what this shows. We have about 2 million people or so that live in the rural areas, and a lot of people live, outside the store where there's competition. A lot of people don't have cars, and so people really do have challenges in terms of accessing healthy food. So what can we do about places where there's not healthy food access? And some urban communities have tried to put grocery stores where there's a large, they try to they had some funds from the Obama administration, federal or state funds, where they built grocery stores, and they really weren't very successful in terms of addressing these things. But
So the community, or maybe the government part of that county or something, tried to put in a store?
Yeah, and the stores just didn't make it.
They just didn't work.
They didn't have the support.
Interesting.
And then the research shows that it actually didn't help so people eat healthier too. And so it's really not just changing the environment. You really have to change, desire and people's motivations to eat healthier, people's maybe their intentions to make their communities healthier, and maybe people's interests in maybe having healthier options. The community has to be interested in trying to be healthier too. To support these types of interventions. One of the programs that I work with here in Ohio is called HEAL Maps. That stands for Healthy Eating, Active Living, Mapping Attributes Using Photo Participatory Surveys.
Say that 3 times fast.
And I was born on the same day that Dr. Seuss was born.
Really?
So that's how I was able to say that. So I guess
good. Yeah.
It actually took me a long time to be able to say that. So this is one of the programs that I work with here in Ohio. And this program is all about, it tries to engage communities around their food environments and their what we call obesogenic environments. It was developed by Oregon State University. And so what we try and do is we help the community understand that, hey, these environmental things, features in the communities can influence our health and well-being. So they can influence whether our kids, our families are physically active, or whether they eat healthy, that type of thing. So what we do, I'm just going to fast forward because we're running a little bit short on time here. We equip community mappers, and they can be 4-H clubs, they can be youth, they can be adults, but we give them these Garmin GPS units. We're actually giving them tablets and smartphones now. We have an app that we're developing. But what we do is we give them these tools, and what they do is they pick routes that they experience every day. So they can be a bike route, it could be a bus route, it could be a walking route, it could be a driving route, but something that they experience every day, because we want to know what they're exposed to every day. And so these mappers, they use these units, and it tracks their movement. And then they take these pictures, and so it tags the pictures, it geocodes the pictures. And so they take these pictures along their routes. And this is Ironton, actually. We did the HEAL Maps in Ironton.
Really?
It shows you the mappers' routes here. And some of the pictures that they took, here's an example of a sidewalk that one of the mappers in Ironton, a picture that they took. So what do you see when you look at that sidewalk there?
It's fallen apart, or it's it's not maintained at all.
Right, it's not maintained.
So therefore, there's people are going to be discouraged from walking it. Because of falling or some kind of hazard.
So the intention of the mapper was to show that this was near their house. These were the sidewalks that they saw when they walked to school. And what they did, we have 5 mappers. They're asked to take about 20 pictures. And so they come back together, and so they have 100 pictures to kind of sort through, and they have to decide on 20 pictures that best represent the community. And so we worked with these mappers to put together a larger presentation for the community.
Gotcha.
And then they present their pictures to the community, and they have a big discussion about the pictures. And so some people think a sidewalk like this is a good thing. They say this is an asset. You know, this is. Hey, there's a lot of people that don't have sidewalks. So
I was going to say at least there is something there to that you could walk.
But things are brought up about each picture that that the mappers, when they took the picture, they had an idea, but other people have different ideas about these pictures. And so, for example, we might show a bike trail, and people say, "Oh, this is a wonderful asset in our community." Other people might say, "Well, this is an issue because I see drug deals that go on."
Well, you could, absolutely. You could look at them in different ways. Farther down that picture, I don't know, that house down there could be looks like maybe abandoned or looks a little rough.
It could be rough, and some people might say, "Well, this is a scary part of town."
People won't go through.
So it brings up a lot of issues, barriers, and opportunities to address. So we also asked the community about their readiness to change, and are their leaders on board? Are people aware of current programs, that type of thing? And we have some polling that we do during these conversations, and at the end we have a report. And so the report kind of summarizes everything that the dialogue, what happened at the meeting, what people talked about, and then people have ideas for what needs to change in the community. And so this is also documented in the report. So maybe there is a big discussion about fixing sidewalks, or maybe there's a discussion about getting restaurants to offer healthier options or to promote healthier options. So there's a number of different goals that are discussed, and then this all goes into these action plans. Another thing that we do is we develop something called a story map, and a story map is just a map that sort of describes the situation in each community, and it talks about the goals that people want to work on in terms of making the communities healthier, and then they can share these story maps online through social media. So it kind of builds that awareness, because a lot of times you just have to raise the awareness of the community to make change, and otherwise change isn't going to happen. People have to be on board. The right people have to be on board. So if you want to fix sidewalks, you better have the planning departments on board to make changes.
Now, how many cities have you done this to yet, Dan? Or I know, obviously Ironton, that's a close by.
We've Ironton, Butler County. We've actually worked with South Columbus. Marion County, Greene County. So we've had about 4 or 5 communities that we've worked with. So we have some more on deck as well.
And you got more planned, right? Okay,
this
good.
was designed by Deborah John at Oregon State University. So I want to give her props.
She
definitely came in. She trained us. So if you're interested in working with the Hill Maps program, give me a call, and I'd be happy to work with you.
Good.
On this program. It's a good program, and it's especially good for youth too. They really gravitate towards this type of science, and we've worked with school groups, and so.
Hey, this has been great information, Dan. It's enlightened us a lot on this, the hill maps and everything. I like that, and it's certainly good for other communities to try to get involved in that. So we appreciate all that, and we're out of time, so we timed it just right. So good talk, Dan.
Thank you.
Until next time, we will see everybody later.